Yes. Dude, we're back after a week off, you guys. I have missed each and every one of you. That's why we got the extra long Oi today, Tuesday night, after a week off, 10 o'clock Central Time. You guys know what that means. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. And it's not just any Just the Tip. It's episode number 27 of Just the Tip. And this isn't just any UFC card, you guys. This is a card where we have two championship fights. The headlining card, the headlining fight, actually has a zombie in it. An actual zombie will be fighting. This will be the first ever zombie that would win a UFC championship if he were to defeat Alexander Volkanovski on Saturday night. We got 12 other fights. We got Khamzat Chimaev. Dude, we've got Peter Yan against Aljo. We've got the return of the hyped up prospect Ian Garry. We've got Marco Madsen on this card. We've got a couple of debuting fighters, a couple of contender series guys. It's a nice mix of everything. But really, from the first fight all the way to the main event, we got an absolutely fantastic week of fights to discuss here tonight on Just the Tip, you guys. And I'm going to do it with you guys like I always do, man. And my guy, Jeffrey Korengold, the very first one in the room today. And, I see a comment like this and it warms the cockles of my heart, ladies and germs. I got to tell you, he just made his first Paloma. It's debatable whether I can hang on until 10, but we'll see. And the tequila can help you sometimes get a little bit crazy, and then you come down off the crazy and you crash out. But hopefully, Jeffrey, you're still with us. Hopefully, you made that Paloma with either Jarritos grapefruit soda or Mexican squirt, because that's how you make an actual Paloma that doesn't suck. Jeffrey, I hope you're doing great. Thank you for hanging out. And I said that I really do. I really do hope you enjoy that Paloma. We got my guy Blood Money MMA Bets in the room saying, I wish I had a Paloma, but I'm at work. What's up, guys? Yeah, usually drinking at work is frowned upon. We got my guy Matthew Chalk saying, oi. And we got Chris saying, oi, Mr. MIA paying his respects to Don Weezy. MMA fam, good luck this week. Good to see you, Chris. Thanks for at least stopping in, man. I appreciate you. I know how busy you've been at that new job lately. Hopefully all is going well there. We got my guy PayPal by Money DFS saying, I need to try this Paloma that turned you on to the fruity drinks. Yeah, man. So I will drink two fruity drinks, a margarita and a Paloma, because I'm a huge fan of tequila. So when I have those drinks, it's one or the other. But I was telling my guy DFS by the numbers this story. When I was down in Cancun, and my girlfriend and I were on vacation down there. We were at a resort where we were drinking margaritas left and right. We ordered a couple of margaritas. The waiter that was serving us brought us a couple of Palomas, and he said, look, you guys, you speak a little Spanish, you look to be enjoying Mexico. This is how Mexicans drink in the sun. Palomas, not margaritas. So we kind of said, all right, well, let's give it a shot. We didn't order it, but we drank it willingly. And let me tell you something. That gentleman was right, and he made a fan of me out of the Paloma, and we drink them to this day. An absolutely delicious, refreshing beverage. You should try it, PayPal. I think you might like it. If you're a tequila person, I think you'll like it. We got Papa Chuck saying, oi, my boy Uncle Weezy, I'm here for my weekly trim duo. Somebody's going to be getting their asses shaved this week. I mean, and actually, it's probably going to be a few different fighters. But I've definitely got an ass shaving for you guys at the end of the show today. So hopefully it all works out. Hopefully we stay on this heater, because it hasn't been since, actually, a young lady who broke my heart, who's on this card, Kay Hansen, was the last person to not come through as Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, and her loss to Jasmine Jazz Davicius. So the circle can actually complete itself tonight as we can come around and hopefully get past that Kay Hansen mistake I made at the beginning of 2022, get past it this week, and move on with another successful Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. My guy DFS by the numbers saying yes. My guy Octeris saying oi. My guy Quaver saying Weezy. We got my guy Daz Files in the room saying oi. LFG, hi all. Daz, good to see you, brother. Hope all is well down under for you. Andy MG saying oi. Yes, we're back, baby. Really hope you got some rest, Uncle Weezy. Really looking forward to this card. You guys, I did. I got a lot of rest. When you do 8 straight weeks of content for UFC cards and you get a week off, you really do need to take advantage of it. Get the UFC out of your head for a few days, recharge, relax, get a little extra sleep. And I did all of those things. As a result of that, I kind of like missed out on a lot of these lines because I promised myself I wasn't even going to look for like a week. When we get the chance to recharge, we absolutely have to take it. I took advantage of it in spades, got a little bit later of a start than I normally would have gotten on this card because I needed to take that time off, but ready to go tonight, ready to break down every damn fight on this card with you guys. Miles saying, sup, Weezy? What's up, Miles? Good to see you in here. Octera saying, yes, Weezy, let's go. DJ saying, big oi from the Unk. What's up, DJ? Andy MG saying, smash that like button for you, Unk. Appreciate it. John Kane saying, oi, let's go, Weezy. Volk, Jan, Hamzat for the treble. Yeah, man, that's a nice holy trinity right there. That's probably going to be shaving ass, all three of them, man. Jay saying, early thoughts on Bordeaux versus Parisian. In my opinion, it sets a new benchmark for high-level heavyweight MMA. Only thing missing is Parker Porter as a guest referee. Yeah, you got 3 guys right now in the heavyweight division that are making some noise. It's Parker Porter, it's Alan Bordeaux, and it's Josh Parisian. Harry Hunsucker right on the kind of like right on the fringes of that as well. And maybe if we can get Jorgen De Castro back, that'll be the 5 guys that really carry the torch forward for this heavyweight division. Going to be a very high-level fight. If I'm being honest with you, Jay, I'm not as prepared for this week's Just the Tip because I've already started looking into Parisian Bordeaux. I'm trying to get all the angles on what could be the best heavyweight fight that the UFC has seen, maybe since like, I don't know, man. Maybe even since like since Stipe against Ngannou, or I mean, dude, we'd have to go back into the annals of history and really kind of dig through the best heavyweights to ever do it, because these two are 2 of the best to ever do it. Can't wait for that fight, man. Miles saying he's not a zombie. That's not what I heard. His name is the Korean Zombie, and from what my sources are telling me, Chan Sung Jung actually means the Korean Zombie. So I think he is a zombie, and he will be the first zombie that, if he wins this fight, that's champion. That much I can tell you. Is he actually a zombie? I don't know, but I've heard that he is. Anyway, Mark Schillingberg saying, yo, Weezy, this card is stacked. I'm stoked. Let's go. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Stacked, stoked, ready to go, man. Miles saying that's just his nickname. No, I know that, Miles. DJ saying, who do we fade first, Ian Garry or Patty? Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the opponent. It always depends on the opponent. But, Ian Garry is very, very well-rounded, very talented. Patty is a very good grappler with not great striking defense. So maybe Gary's a little more well-rounded. So maybe we fade Patty first, but it really does depend on the opponent. But I'm here for their fights, man. Ian Garry's great. Patty Pimblett is super fun to watch. I mean, you may not be a fan of Patty, the way that he fights or whatever, but I mean, dude, that guy is great for the sport, man. He brings eyes to the television when he's on there. He's got great style. He's great on the mic. Love listening to that man talk. That accent, it's fantastic, dude. I'm a fan of Patty, and I'm a fan of the way he fights. He doesn't try to win minutes. He doesn't, he's in there really trying to take his opponent's head off, trying to get subs, trying to knock his opponent's head off, trying to finish fights. So yeah, I'm here for both of those guys. They're both fantastic. We got just Justin Villegas saying, I need some good dogs to go with my beers for Saturday. Beers and dogs, my favorite. Well, we'll try to find some for you, Justin. I assure you. Val saying, oi, what's up, Val? Good to see you in here, brother. We got Jeremiah saying, I'm glad to see you, Unk. Welcome back. Thank you for hanging out, Jeremiah. I saw you earlier in the chat, but I think You were the first one in the chat, but for some reason, some of those really early comments, they get kicked out. I can't do a Paloma, but I got a screwdriver. Oi! Hey, that's good enough, man. Andy MG saying Jarritos is so good. If you know, you know. That's right, dude. Jarritos is the shit. It's so good, dude. Joe Poeta saying, I'm here wondering how a man without a neck got choked. Dude, sometimes it does happen, man. I mean, you can do it with a neck crank. You can do it in a couple of different ways, but you can do it with arm triangles. Choke them with their own damn shoulder. That's a good way to do it. But, you know, you can choke a man with one neck, with no neck. You just do need to do it in a creative way, man. Miles saying, oh, Weezy the goat. Yeah, man. I know he's not a zombie. Blood Money MMA Bet saying, Weezy, what's up, brother? Let's get this free money, everyone. Let's get it, dude. Miles saying, you're going to shave your butt? No, man, I'm not going to shave my ass, dude. No, that wouldn't. I mean, dude, there's 35 of you guys watching right now. What you want me to like make it so nobody's watching? Nobody's tuning in to watch me shave my own ass. That'd be disgusting. I would be worried about anybody that would sit around and watch that voluntarily. We're talking about Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. One of the most probably looked forward to capper segments on MMA Twitter, on MMA YouTube. So, you know, that's what we're going to do today, Miles. We're going to show you at the end of the show, my man. Rod Torque in the room saying, what up, ladies? What's up, dude? Good to see you. Cuban Assassin saying, Weezy Wheeze, let's get this cheddar. Fun fact, Aljo stayed longer on the ground after the knee than Overeem and Askren did after they were brutally KO'd. Yeah, I mean, you know, it seems like he might have done a little bit of acting there, but, you know, it was a veteran move. You know, Peter Yan shouldn't have needed him while he was down. And, you know, it is what it is. Finally, we get the rematch. Finally, we get an opportunity to see which one of these guys, when no rules are broken, will come out of the cage wearing that strap. I think it's going to be Yan. You know, but that's not exactly a hot take after how the first fight went. Yeah, man. Let's hope that nothing like that happens in this rematch, because it'll be like another 2 years before they fight again. My guy Chris Kalanzis in the room. Uncle Weezy dropping science this evening, making Hugh Hefner proud. Somebody called me Hugh Bettner because of this smoking jacket, and I was here for that too. I thought that was awesome. My guy Eagle Clan in the room saying, oi. We got Miles saying, love this show. We got Pascal saying, laughing my ass off. Pascal, it's always good to see you in here, brother. We got Raw Torque saying, LOL. We got Bailey saying, thoughts on Dawkins after his last 2 fights. My thoughts are he's a fantastic heavyweight. He came up against 2 very, very tough matchups against 2 of the top 5 UFC heavyweights. You know, Chris's hands are very, very good. I just think Lewis was a brutal matchup for him. And then Curtis Blades is a really bad matchup for anybody not named Francis Ngannou. So my thoughts is that Chris Dawkins has got a very bright future. Is he Josh Parisian? You know, is he Alan Badeau? Does he have that kind of talent? Of course not. But, you know, he's going to do very well. Great hands, very fast hands. And you see what a guy like Aspinall, who's got really fast hands, can do at this weight class. It's not something you see very often. I think Chris is going to do very well. He just got pushed up that ladder really quickly, even though he did deserve to be pushed up there quickly because of the performances that he had put on. I think he's got a very bright future. I can't wait to see Chris Dawkins back in the cage. Tatooine Dream saying guys like Gall and Aspinall need to have their notepads out when Badeau Parisian fight. They're going to be cage side. I can guarantee you, Tatooine Dream, they are going to be cage side for that fight. Matthew Buchanan saying have to fade Garry this fight. Well, you know, Darian Weeks is for real, man. Is Garry for real or just hype? Says my guy David Milks. I think he's for real, man. I think he's very young, David. That's the thing. When you see guys who already have a really well-rounded mixed martial arts game in their early 20s, and are fighting some decent regional scene competition like Garry had been, you will see these guys continue to improve. And this is a new generation of martial artists here, where a lot of these guys, when I was in my early 20s, they were specialists who became mixed martial artists. Now you got 12-year-olds who are going into MMA gyms, you know, because they grew up doing judo or jujitsu or wrestling, and they've started to mix the martial arts at a much younger age. And you're seeing some of these, even these heavyweights, heavyweights usually don't hit their peak until their late 30s. Now you're seeing some guys like Gall come in there very young and have a lot of success. Aspinall, Sergey Spivak. There are some guys that aren't even 30 yet that are having a lot of success in this division. So, Garry's just going to be getting better from here. And I think if the UFC doesn't give him too much too soon, that we're going to see him climb the ladder and do very well. He's a huge welterweight. Good wrestling defense, really smooth, slick striking. So I think he's for real. But you got to keep in mind that the kid is so young. He's not ready to step in there against Colby or Khamzat yet. You got to let him grow into the division. You got to be careful about not giving him too much too soon. And this week's fight is going to be a great benchmark for him at this point of his career. Thanks for stopping by, David. Good to see you in here, brother. Matthew Buchanan saying, oi. We got Miles say, will Ian Garry be exposed? Perhaps. We got my guy F. Carrillo in the room, always taking care of business, showing love for his uncle Weezy. Ring a ding, ding. You guys, we got a donation. My guy F. Carrillo, always supporting the show. Much love to you, brother. Good to see you here hanging out. I hope work isn't kicking your ass too bad, brother. Matthew Buchanan saying Weeks has more potential than Garry. Weeks is very young too. This is a great fight, the Weeks get. This whole card is awesome. And my guy F. Carrillo saying, given the love, respect, and commitment for all you do, brother. I really appreciate that, F, man. You are the absolute man. Thank you for always supporting the show. Thank you for always watching. Always the kind words. They mean so much to me, man. We got Matthew Buchanan saying, Aljo can wall and stall and pull the fight out. MMA world would be so salty. Yeah, that's for sure. We got my guy Keegan Dinahan saying, Uncle Weezy looking stylish tonight. Thanks, man. I always bring out the smoking jacket on Tuesday night, because I've always said that just the tip is the sensual prelude to the balls deep breakdown. So we're giving you just the tip of the stats tonight. So when I do that and I'm trying to be sensual with the stats, I got to have the kind of clothes and the finery that matches that mood that I'm trying to set. And that, what better way than the smoking jacket, Keegan? I appreciate you, brother. We got PSSA saying, let's go. We got DFS by the numbers saying, looking forward to the crop top prop drop, baby. That is a new show that we're going to be giving you guys on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. I've got a little something called a prop template that I've been setting up. I'll give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek tonight. We got Raw Torque saying nothing better than Chicago-style deep dish pizza and deep house music, and Uncle Weezy breaking down the fights. Oh, man, I mean, deep house music, you're absolutely talking my language there, man. That's all deep house, classic house, Chicago house, jazz house, disco house, but the deep, sexy, sensual house music has always been my favorite, Raw Torque. It's good to see you. Good to know you're a fan of old school house too, man. Oxygen 3000 saying, do you see anyone beating Khamzat? Because I don't so far. I mean, we got to see, dude. I mean, this guy is on another level. He's on an absolute another level. I'm just interested to see if anyone can take him past the 7 or 8 minute mark. Can he last past that point? That's my only question about Khamzat at this point, man. That guy is an absolute monster. Miles saying, oi, and Oxygen 3000 saying, you the man, Weezy. Miles saying, Weezy, oi. And then we got F. Carrillo at Brady. He's saying the wave to Brady. TMNX Trash saying, Chan Sung Jung is a dead man walking. That's for sure. Matthew Buchanan laughing at that. Fight ready zombie. Yeah, he is at fight ready, man. But you know what, you guys? We're ready to break down all 13 fights on this UFC 273 card from a statistical and tape study perspective, you guys. Let me share my screen with you guys. Let me see if my co-host, Smooth Jimmy Apollo, is ready to go. I think he's out of the makeup people right now and ready to do this show. And there he is. There he is, you guys. Sharing the screen with you guys. Bringing the stats. As always, is your Uncle Weezy. I got the lines up here. I've got the tapology up here. And I've got the stats for all 13 fights on this card. And we got to start with Julio Arce versus Daniel Santos. So, and F. Carrillo saying, I'm going to Swedish House Mafia. Come down to Houston, for house Mexico food and margaritas. I love Mexican food. I love the Swedish House Mafia. I have never been to Houston before. I'm going to have to check that out. And man, margaritas, I can absolutely smash those, and palomas, beers, and a little bit of water and a little bit of coffee in the morning to get us started. All right, man. Now, banners. Let me just make sure I've got the lines up here for every fight, you guys. So I'm just going to have them kind of dragging across the bottom for you guys as I break down these stats. Let me take this over here, get my notes up for you guys, and we're going to start off with Julio Arce versus Daniel Willie Cat Santos. In the measurables, we're going to see Arce has a 3-inch reach advantage here. He is a southpaw. However, Santos is 5 years younger. Arce is a former featherweight. This is his third fight at bantamweight. So it's really Arce that's going to be the bigger dude here. He's got that 3-inch reach advantage. And in terms of experience, Arce's got that in spades, you guys. 13 more professional fights, almost 170 more minutes in the pro cage, 1 more year as a pro. He's got 8 more UFC level fights and 92 more minutes in the UFC cage, while Santos is making his UFC debut. Arce is a good finisher. He's got 5 wins by submission, 5 by knockout, and he's finished 4 of his 5 UFC wins inside the distance, 3 by knockout, 1 by submission. So we got a good experience advantage here for Arce. He's the better finisher. He's the bigger guy, and he's fought a lot of featherweights. And this is his 3rd fight down at the bantamweight division. When it comes to striking, Arce is a high-level striker, you guys. He's got excellent striking defense. His one hole is that he's been knocked down 3 times in 8 fights, and he's absorbing a knockdown on over 1% of the significant strikes that he absorbs. And we haven't seen Santos yet thus far in the UFC, but when you watch the regional scene competition on him, he is a flashy striker. He throws a lot of spinning shit, a lot of high amplitude, explosive attacks. And you know, it's nothing that Arce hasn't seen before. This is a guy who's a very high level striker here. So Santos is going to have to be a little bit careful about not trying to be too flashy on these striking attempts, because Arce is very good defensively. He's sporting a 67% striking defense over 8 fights in the UFC. And he's fought some really good strikers like Song Yadong, Andre Ewell, Hakeem Dawodu, Dan Ige. So I really do believe that Arce is going to be the guy who's definitely fought the better level of competition here. He's fought UFC level competition for more than 1/3 of his career, wins over Ige, Erosa, Ewell, and then the losses are to really high level competition like Yadong and Dawodu. When it comes to the grappling, we can see that Arce here has only gotten 3 takedowns in 8 fights, and he's gotten about 8.4% control time over those 8 fights, but 93.75% takedown defense, and he's been controlled for less than 10% of his UFC career. So we do like to see that Arce is a high-level striker, and combined with that is the ability to be able to keep the fight standing when his opponent wants to take it to the ground. What I saw from Santos on the regional scene, especially in his fights in ACA, you guys, Santos was fighting a couple of Dagestani guys, or I believe Kalimov is a Chechen, and Astamirov, I believe he's a Dagestani. But these guys wrestled the shit out of him. So he has seen some wrestling heavy game plans before, and that's really not what he's going to see from Arce. This is going to be more of a striking match here. And the wins for Daniel Santos over Cleverson Silva, who was 8-0 at the time, Jose Alexandre 19-8, Erwin Machado 11-3. Those are the best wins for him. Oh, and Astamirov 4-1. This guy that he beat here, Junuzov, I think that this guy hasn't beaten anybody. He's Kyrgyzstani, and the wins are over a 15-15 guy here in AMC, but then 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 0-1. So I mean, like, Arce would clearly be the best mixed martial artist that this guy has ever beaten. He's not on the level of Junuzov, Fantini, Astamirov, Cleverson Silva, and Jose Alexandre. So this is definitely a step up for Santos. I think they're both really good strikers, but I think Arce is just kind of on another level. He'll be the bigger guy, the more experienced guy, the guy who's fought the higher level of competition, and the guy who will probably be able to choose where the fight takes place. I do believe he'll be able to maybe get a takedown if he wants one, but we have seen Santos tested by very good wrestlers in the past. And even though he lost to Muradov, I think his name is Murad Kalimov here. Kalimov was just relentless with the wrestling attack. So, but because I do believe that this is going to be a striking match, and because we've seen Arce, hang in there with some really good strikers like Dawoodu, like Ige, like Erosa, that this should be a winnable fight for Julio Arce. And I'm actually thinking that even though Santos has never been stopped before, that the kind of striking that's going to be going on in this fight, I believe somebody's getting knocked out, you guys. Arce's been chinny in the UFC, having been knocked down 3 times in 8 fights, and Santos is a very explosive striker. And in his own right, Arce has finished 4 of his 5 UFC wins. And if you look at the banner right now, we're getting plus money on the fight doesn't go to decision here. So I think a way to play this would be Julio Arce inside the distance if you're on the Arce side. Arce inside the distance is around plus 240 on some books right now. Santos inside the distance is a better than plus 400 on some of these books. And the fight doesn't go to decision is plus money. It's plus 130 on Bet Online right now. That's a spot that I actually kind of like. That's even a little bit better than the divisional finish rate for the bantamweight division. So I would say that fight doesn't go. Arce inside the distance, Santos inside the distance. These are all bettable lines for this particular fight. But the pick for you guys is going to be Julio Arce by second round knockout, you guys. And let me see here. Let me get up. The next fight is going to be Piera Rodriguez versus Kay Hansen. So Piera Rodriguez is going to be making her debut here, you guys. In terms of, let me see. Let me get my notes back up on the screen. So Kay Hansen is going to be 7 years younger than Piera Rodriguez. So Piera making her UFC debut. Kay Hansen, this is going to be her 4th fight in the UFC, but she's 7 years younger. Kay Hansen only 22 years old, and she already has 12 pro fights. In the experience, Hansen has 5 more pro fights than Piera, 50 more minutes in the pro cage, 2 more UFC fights, 27 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both ladies are excellent finishers for straw weights. Piera, 71%, all by knockout. Hansen has an 86% finish rate, 57% by sub, 29% by knockout. But Hansen has a better finish rate and has been a bit more diverse. She's gotten a knockout finish as well as submission finishes, while Piera has just been finishing by knockout. When it comes to the striking, you guys, Piera has the edge. She has rare power for a straw weight. She showed 67% striking defense in her DWCS fight against Machado. And on the regional scene, she showed excellent boxing and lots of power. Kay has been serviceable on the feet, but I think she'll be at a slight deficit on the feet and needs to get the fight to the ground in order to have a better chance to win minutes and bank rounds. When it comes to the grappling, though, I've got to give Kay Hansen a considerable advantage here. She's a 10th Planet brown belt. 5 of her 7 pro wins have been by submission. And what's also important about that, you guys, 4 of those 5 submission wins have come in round number 3. And when we go, if you guys have watched tape on Kay Hansen, I think that this is very important as well. If you haven't already, watch the Magdalena Sormova fight that Kay Hansen had in Invicta. A lady who's got a really good record and has been a really good regional scene fighter. She lost a split decision to Sormova here, who was 8-1 coming into that fight. But if you watch that fight in the 3rd round with 10 seconds left, Kay rolls for an arm bar and basically has it. She has the one leg across the chest, one leg across the neck. The arm is completely straightened out, and she's just looking for the right angle in order to pivot on that elbow, and then the whistle goes. So Kay Hansen almost has 5 third-round submissions. Just because of that data, you got to be looking at Kay Hansen round 3. I mean, she is the better grappler here. She's got all kinds of third-round finishes. She's the type of person who kind of will set things up earlier in the fight on the ground that she'll go for later in the fight. We saw it against Jinyu Fry. We saw it against Helen Peralta. We saw it against Gabby Romero. 2 minutes of round 3. Peralta, 4:16 of round 3. Sharon Jacobson, armbar, 4:43 of round 3. Nicole Cagliari, neck crank from mount, 1:14 of round 3. Decision win over Pirosin. Jinyu Fry, triangle armbar, 2:26 round 3. And then the Sorimova fight. She was this close to an armbar, you guys. So I am loving Kay Hansen with a round 3 prop plus 1,600 on most books. And if you want to be extra cheeky and say, I don't think she gets it done via ground and pound, you can go for third round sub at plus 2,400. So those are some Lambo plays, to quote my guy, Narco Cop there. Yeah, so Piera has shown a willingness to wrestle in her DWCS fight. She shot for 13 takedowns in that fight, but she probably won't do that against Kay, as Kay is very dangerous on the ground. Kay's shown a tendency to get a little sloppy on the ground, though. She sometimes gives up position going for sloppy takedowns, and she's been reversed a handful of times on the ground in the UFC and on the regional scene. So even though Kay will usually try to sell out to get to fight to the ground, sometimes she does get a little bit sloppy trying to get it there, and she'll give up position. She let Jazz Davicius sweep her in her most recent performance, and once she got swept at the beginning of the second round, she basically lost that round by spending the rest of it on the bottom. So, yeah, Kay's got to be a little bit more efficient with her takedown attempts. She can't just sell out for them and like roll to get her opponent to the ground, because sometimes the opponent winds up on top of her. But you know, she is going to be the better grappler here, you guys. And strength of schedule, it's Hansen all day. Kay's got 5 more fights. She's 7 years younger and fought and beaten the more experienced, higher level competition. In Kay's 5 losses, the combined records of the ladies who beat her is currently 33 wins and 9 losses. So this is a step up for Piera. But Piera has done a good job of keeping fights standing. And when she gets taken down, especially in her more recent experience, you do see her getting back to the feet. You can take her down. It's getting harder to hold her down. And in these stand-up exchanges, she's throwing the crisper, heavier shots. These girls that have fought and lost to Piera Rodriguez look like they got thrown off a bus after the fight. I mean, like when she hits, it absolutely hurts, you guys. So I think that this is going to be a very, very close fight. Kay Hansen, only 5 takedowns in 3 fights and a 21% takedown accuracy is very concerning. She's spending about 48% of her UFC fights in control time positions, either for or against. But the problem that I have here is that Kay has tried 23 takedowns and her opponents have only tried 4, yet she's barely out controlling her opponents, 26.5% to about 22%. So she just hasn't been efficient enough in order for me to believe that she's going to win enough minutes in this fight in order to win a decision. Can she catch Piera in a web if this fight goes to the ground and potentially submit her? Absolutely. I believe that that's a possibility. And I believe it's a possibility in the 3rd round because of the way that she's been able to finish fights in the 3rd round. Kay's got excellent conditioning, you guys. So as that fight goes on and as the grappling exchanges pile up, she starts to read her opponent and then finds ways to finish the fight. So I am going to be playing Kay Hansen by 3rd round submission as a big flyer for a very small investment. But I'm actually going to be picking Piera Rodriguez, I think, to win this fight. But you guys, it's very close. I think that this is going to be a very, very close, greasy decision at the end of the day. Kay is very difficult to finish. She's only been finished in 1 of her 5 losses, and that was when she was like 18 years old. So I think it's going to be a very greasy, close fight. Love the Kay Hansen 3rd round sub prop here. I'll pick Piera Rodriguez with very little confidence. But the reason I'm picking Piera is Kay just hasn't shown an ability to consistently win minutes on the ground if she doesn't get the submission. So the pick is Piera Rodriguez by decision, you guys. Next fight is an absolute banger. Josh Fremd versus Antony Hernandez, you guys. I cannot wait for this fight. It is going to be sick. I am so happy that this fight got made. So we've got, let me get that ticker up on the screen for you guys. We see Antony Hernandez here sitting around minus 190, Fremd at plus 165. Fight doesn't go to decision at minus 400. And let's see here. Oh, and by the way, as always, you guys, in the description of this video is the link to all the stats. They're free every single week. I make them available for free. We got the advanced stats on the left tab all the way there that has player information for each fighter. And then we've got the matchup template here for each one of the fights on the card. So let me get back to my notes here. Let's see. Okay. So in the measurables here, you guys, these guys are the same age. Fremd is 4 inches taller, and he's got a 1.5 inch reach advantage here. So he's going to be the bigger middleweight. When it comes to experience, Hernandez has been a pro for about 3 more years than Josh, despite them being the same age. And he has 5 more fights at the UFC level and 24 minutes in the UFC cage as Josh is making his UFC debut here. Josh has been the busier fighter as a pro, though. He's fought 11 times in 5 years. As for Hernandez, it's been 11 fights in just under 8 years. So both guys have over 75% finish rates. Hernandez mostly finishes by sub. Fremd is an equal opportunity finisher, 3 subs, 4 KOs. When it comes to the striking stats, both guys are very, very dangerous in the stand-up. Fremd manages distance well, and he throws with a ton of power. He uses his length, great hands, great kicks. Hernandez, on the other hand, he brings constant pressure and volume, and he's got a tremendous chin. So he will walk forward. He will eat 1 or 2 shots to give one, and he can do that all day. The 2 times Hernandez has been KO'd as a pro, he was hurt to the body, and that was what set up the finish. So the off switch on Antony Hernandez is to the body, you guys. He's got a very, very, very good chin, but he has been knocked out twice. So if Fremd was smart, especially taking this fight on short notice, he would be going to the body a ton here, because I think it's not going to help him going to the head, because Antony can eat those headshots all day long. And there's nothing more frustrating than a guy who keeps coming forward while he's eating your shots and is constantly pressuring you. Those are the kind of people that break their opponents. And we do see that Hernandez is a savage finisher, you guys. 11 professional fights, and we've got an 88% finish rate in those 8 wins. So 7 of 8 wins inside the distance, 6 by sub, 1 by knockout. But when it comes to the grappling, Hernandez has the more dangerous grappling here, but Fremd has a D1 wrestling background. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be particularly easy for Hernandez to get this fight to the ground, but the pressure that he brings is usually what winds up, you know, getting the fight to the ground. He doesn't have to be a technically great wrestler. The way that he comes forward, he can just duck under a big overhand right and fall in on your hips and take you down. And he's done that quite a few times. Fluffy's averaging 3.76 takedowns per 15 minutes and 1.88 submission attempts per 15 minutes. So he's very active getting the fight to the ground. And once he gets it there, he's actively trying to finish. And when it comes to the strength of schedule, I mean, obviously it's Hernandez. I mean, Hernandez has fought the better brand of competition. He's the former LFA champ. He's fought 5 rounds on the regional scene, and he's UFC wins over the Iron Turtle, Rodolfo Vieira, and Jordan Wright. Fremd cut his teeth in the LFA and has fought for a title there, so he's fought comparable regional scene competition. But even when you go back and you look at Antony Hernandez, he beat Brendan Allen on the regional scene. I mean, so this guy's been fighting really good competition since day one, and he brings that very unique combination of conditioning, a good chin and durability, and a very aggressive striking and grappling attack. I love Antony Hernandez. I think he's pretty much a nightmare matchup to accept on short notice, because his conditioning has been so good, because of the pressure that he brings, and because of how aggressive he is. So I see why the fight doesn't go to decision is sitting at minus 400 here. It makes it pretty much unbettable, but the bookies are telling you, look, somebody's getting finished here. Somebody's getting served in this fight. And because Fremd's taking it on short notice, I think he's far more likely to be the one that winds up getting the short end of the stick on Saturday night. I'm going to be picking Antony Hernandez to win this one, and I think he's going to get it done by second round submission, you guys. And then the next fight, Aleksei Oleinik versus Vanderaa. All right, so let's get this up on the screen, you guys. MMA Asphalt in the room. Oi, 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 what's up, man? And then Justin saying, wait, what? Sounded like you were on the K train. And we got Kyle saying, hey, Weezy, what about a husband and wife parlay? Raquel and Torres. Yeah, they're both on the card. And it's Raquel that's the husband, or is it Tecia that's the husband? I'm not sure. Don't care. Doesn't matter to me. They're both great fighters. I don't know if I'd parlay Tecia, though. You know, she's even money. You don't really need to parlay her. There's enough value in that line. If you think she keeps this fight standing, she's going to piece up Mackenzie Dern if she keeps it standing. So I don't mind that, man. And we got, let's see here, before we get Blood Money saying, I bet Piera at plus 135. You got to love that. You beat the line movement there, Blood Money. I love her in this fight. I'm going to use some money from my win to sub to K's OnlyFans, though. Oh, yeah. I mean, you could always do that, too. You know, just because you bet against a fighter, it doesn't mean that you can't subscribe to their OnlyFans, you know. But I think that K's got a much brighter future in fighting than she does in OnlyFans. You know, she's only 22 years old, you guys. Kay Hansen can get so much better than what she already is. And she's already fighting really good competition at the 115 division. She stepped up to 125 for her last fight. That was probably a mistake, taking on a much bigger girl in Jasmine. But now she's going to be fighting someone her own size in Piera. I think it's a very interesting matchup. Kay needs this win, though. Otherwise, it'll be 3 losses in a row, and you don't want to do that in the UFC. But yeah, I think they're both great fighters. So very interested to see how that one goes. But yeah, Oleinik against Vanderaa, you guys. Oleinik minus 113, just a slight favorite over Vanderaa, coming in on short notice at minus 107. Fight doesn't go to decision here, sitting at minus 375. So when we see this here, you guys, obviously the first thing that jumps out is that Vanderaa is 29 years old and Aleksei Oleinik is 44. So Jared, 15 years younger. He's the bigger guy. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage here. When it comes to experience, though, obviously that's Aleksei Oleinik. He's got 57 more professional fights than Jared, over 200 more minutes in the cage, 18 more years as a pro. So, like, if you got a kid that's graduating high school right now, you know, Oleinik started fighting when that kid was born, you know, 18 years more as a pro, I should say. So it's 25 years as a pro for Aleksei Oleinik. Vanderaa, 7 years as a pro. So 18 longer years in this game. Craziness. 10 more UFC level fights for Aleksei. 45 more minutes in the UFC cage. Both guys have over 80% finish rates as a pro. And what's even crazier is Oleinik, in 59 wins, has a 92% finish rate. What a finisher. In the striking, neither guy is particularly good at striking. I mean, Jared's going to have the better striking, I would say, because Oleinik is just, he's unorthodox. You know, he uses his striking to set up his grappling entries. So he throws one strike at a time. He throws them with a lot of power. He does have some knockdowns in the UFC. He's landed 2 knockdowns. So it's not like he doesn't have power for a heavyweight. It's just that he's, you know, the striking is a means to an end for Aleksei. He's using his striking to set up his entries to get the fight to the ground. And he doesn't care if he pulls guard. He doesn't care if he tries to take you to the cage, clinch up with you and try to get on your back there. He might just try to, he just leans on guys sometimes. He'll get his arms around them and then just kind of fall over like a tree and then just say, if we both go to the ground, I'm going to find a way to get your neck. And he does it over and over again. Vanderaa is the better boxer. He'll be the more powerful striker on the feet. He'll be the more likely guy to win minutes on the feet here. But when it comes to the grappling, it's Aleksei all day. 47 career wins by submission for Aleksei Oleinik. 8 wins by Ezekiel choke. Vanderaa has 20% takedown defense in the UFC. Let me repeat that. Jared Vanderaa has 20% takedown defense in the UFC. His opponents have shot for 10 takedowns. They've gotten 8 of them. Aleksei Oleinik has submitted 6 guys in the UFC on only 14 takedowns. So that's all it takes, you guys. I mean, 1 takedown for this guy, and there's a 50% chance that he's getting a submission off of that takedown. So Aleksei is a guy you just don't want to spend any time on the ground with. And here's another problem. Aleksei Oleinik's his fights are taking place on the ground for over 60% of his UFC career of almost 100 UFC minutes. So that's almost 60 minutes taking place in control time positions for or against. And whether he's on his back or whether he's on top, Aleksei can finish the fight from there. And Jared Vanderaa has spent 28% of his UFC career of 5 fights being controlled by his opponents. He's getting taken down 2.27 times per 15 minutes. He's taking this fight on short notice too, so there are only so many things he'll be able to practice in terms of submission defense for the various submission attacks that Aleksei has. When we look at the strength of schedule, it looks pretty comparable, but Aleksei has fought and beaten the better and more experienced brand of competition. 1.39 ratio for Oleinik, 1.45 for Vanderaa. A little more experienced competition here for Oleinik. But when we look at the wins, this is the big difference here, you guys. Aleksei's beating veteran UFC competition with winning records. The average record of the guy that Jared Vanderaa beats in the UFC has a half win and 1.5 losses. So Oleinik, the better strength of schedule. Oleinik, the far better and more dangerous grappler, and Jared Vanderaa hasn't been able to, prevent his opponents from getting the fight to the ground when they want it. Even you can look at a little bit of MMA math here, you guys, and see that Jared Vanderaa got knocked out in the first round by Sergey Spivak, while Aleksei Oleinik took Spivak to a 3-round decision and pretty much almost finished Spivak at the end of the first and second rounds. So he had a better performance against Spivak, and he's just fought, he's beaten the former champion in Verdum. He beats these guys that really don't belong here, like Maurice Green. He beats those guys. And Vanderaa, frankly, is one of those guys. He's taking fights like, I don't know why he took that Romanov fight. And then when he beat Harry Hunsucker on the Contender Series, he called out Sergey Spivak. And I remember thinking to myself, who calls out Sergey Spivak? I don't get that. You just won a regional scene, a fight against Harry Hunsucker, a guy who had 5 losses coming into that fight. And then you call out a guy like Spivak, who's just way better than you everywhere. And then he winds up just getting destroyed by him. So one of the strangest call outs by Jared Vanderaa there. I hate this fight for Vanderaa. And for those of you who say, how could you pick a 44-year-old man to win? Well, Jared Vandeera's last loss was against Andrei Arlovsky, who's 43 years old. You guys, I got to go with Aleksei Oleinik here. I don't care if he's fucking 50. I think that he's still dangerous on the ground. Jared Vanderaa has not done a good job of preventing his opponents from taking the fight to the ground. And if Aleksei Oleinik, he really only needs a minute down there to finish you. As a matter of fact, at the end of the second round, Spivak made a mistake with about 29 seconds left, and he was about 1 second away from being submitted due to a neck crank at the end of that round. He got saved by the bell. So really, it only takes Aleksei Oleinik about 30 seconds, and that's against a good grappler like Spivak. He made Spivak kind of look silly on the ground. Vanderaa is not as good as Spivak on the ground. So, yeah, we're going to be going with Aleksei Oleinik here, you guys. I'm picking him to win by first-round submission. Next fight, Mickey Gall against Mike Mallott. This is another really interesting fight, you guys. Can't wait to break this one down with you guys. Let me get the banner up on the screen here for this one. We see Mickey Gall at plus 165, Mike Mallott at minus 190. The fight doesn't go at minus 260. So in the measurables, we're going to see that Gall's going to have a 1-inch reach and height advantage here. So he's going to be the bigger guy, but Gall is a true welterweight and a big one at that. Mike Mallott used to fight at 145. You know, he's got a fight against Hakeem Dawodu at 145. He's bounced back and forth between 145 and 155. It wasn't until his most recent fight in the Contender Series against Smot Risky that he moved up to 170. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be Gall that has the bigger, that's the bigger guy here, the more natural welterweight. When it comes to experience, Gall has 3 more professional fights, 60 more minutes in the pro cage, 9 more UFC level fights, and over 80 more minutes in the UFC cage. Gall has been the busier fighter as well. He's fighting almost twice a year, while Mallott, I mean, he only has 8 pro fights in an 11-year career, you guys. Mallott turned pro at the age of 19, but here he is at the age of 30, and he's only got 8 fights. He's got 100% finish rate in his wins. He's been finished in his only loss, and he does have 1 fight that went to a draw in Bellator. Gall is also a great finisher with an 86% finish rate, and he's been quite durable. He's only been finished once in 4 pro losses, and he's lost to some high-level UFC competition. When it comes to the striking, both of these guys tend to rely on their BJJ, but they're both competent strikers. Gall has 2 knockdowns in 10 fights, and he's been knocked down 3 times. Mallott, in his less than 1 minute in the UFC cage, is showing a sparkling 100% striking defense, as his opponent was 0 for 6 on strikes against him. But, you know, it's a small sample size, so it doesn't really mean anything. You know, I think that Mallott can win minutes on the feet. I think Gall can win minutes on the feet. It's hard to know which one of these guys is the better striker because in Mike Mallott's 8 professional fights, we've only got 26 minutes of cage time, and 15 minutes of that was against 1 fight. So in the other 7 fights, you know, it was 11 minutes of cage time in 7 fights. So Mallott just gets in and out. There's really no tape on this guy. But in the fight that he had the draw in Bellator, he 10-8'd the guy in the first round, but in the second and the third round, after putting out a lot of output and really trying to finish the fight and coming very close a couple of times, he showed really good conditioning. He went the full 15. He didn't look like he was dying in the third round, which is sometimes how you would expect somebody to act when you never really see them go past 1 or 2 minutes. But it looks like Mallott's got really good conditioning. And now that he's not making this crazy cut down to 145 anymore, and he's up at a more natural weight class for him up at 170, that the conditioning should be there for Mallott. The guy that we have to worry about the conditioning with is Gall. He's shown deplorable conditioning in the past in the UFC, in particular in the Diego Sanchez fight. I mean, he had nothing left after the first round, but that wasn't the only one. He is definitely just completely gassed out. The Sanchez fight and the fight before that, just absolutely terrible conditioning. So that's what we have to worry about there. Mickey Gall, very good on the ground, but only 6 takedowns in 10 UFC fights. I had some interesting advanced stats to look at here for these two. Let me see if I can find it for you guys. So that's Tybura. Okay, so it's going to be down here. But if we look at Gall and we look at his record in the fights that he got takedowns in and the fights that he didn't, let me see if I have this information. Yeah. So let's see. Both guys are really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu players with plenty of subs on their records. Gall has shown awful takedown defense thus far in the UFC at 36.36%, and he's been controlled for over 30% of his UFC cage time. Gall has never gotten more than 2 takedowns in a UFC fight. Now, Gall is 4-1 when he gets a takedown in the UFC, and he's 1-4 when he doesn't. His only UFC win without a takedown was against Mike Jackson. Mallott is very aggressive off of his back with his BJJ, and he has 4 career wins by sub. So we don't really see Gall winning fights with his striking because he's 1-4 in fights where he didn't get a takedown. And that one win was against Jackson, and I think that fight just went to the ground without Gall even having to get a takedown, and he wound up getting a submission there. So, we've seen Gall be, dependent to get the fight to the ground in order to win minutes or finish the fight in order to get a win. I feel like Mallott is going to have one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu games that he's seen thus far in the UFC. So I don't even know if Gall wants to take this guy down. And Mallott's good on the feet too. He's got good striking. We saw him absorb some shots from Solomon Renfro, but once he got the timing and once he figured out Renfro, he landed a beautiful counter and finished him on the ground. He's got a little bit of power in his hands, Mallott does, and he's got a very good chin as well. So, it's just a very difficult fight to be confident about one way or the other here. Gall has fought the much better brand of competition, you guys. However, outside of the competition that he's lost to, guys like Diego Sanchez, Randy Brown, Alex Morono, Mike Perry, his wins are against some of the lowest level names the UFC has ever had to offer. CM Punk, Mike Jackson, Salim Touari, Sage Northcutt, George Sullivan. Those are Mickey Gall's wins. So, it's hard to know what Gall's level is because, like, the guys that he's beating are bottom of the barrel. The guys that he's losing to are guys that have been UFC mainstays for a very long time, and Mallott is neither of those. Mallott is not, Alex Morono, Mike Perry, Randy Brown, Diego Sanchez. He's not at that level yet, but he's probably better than Salim Touari, Sage Northcutt, George Sullivan. So this is a very difficult fight to call. I like Mallott's conditioning better. I think his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just as good, if not better, than Gall's. I think the striking is comparable, but I'll go with Mallott's chin and Mallott's conditioning. I'm going to pick Mallott to win, but I'm not laying -200 on this guy. That's for sure. I think that's too much for a guy that is making a debut here. So I'm going to pick Mike Mallott to win, you guys, but not with a ton of confidence. But yeah, I was just going to show you guys the difference between the wins here for Gall and the losses. And when we highlight the wins against Sullivan, Northcutt, CM Punk, Mike Jackson, you'll see that he got takedowns in those fights, except for against Jackson. Takedown one here, one here, one here, two here, one here, and then he didn't need one against Jackson. But in all of these losses, 0 for 1 on takedowns, 0 for 6 on takedowns, 0 for 0, and 0 for 2. So in his 4 losses, he's 0 of 9 on his takedown attempts. So he has been, kind of dependent in order to get the fight to the ground in order to win. So next fight, you guys, is going to be Aspen Ladd against Raquel Pennington. So let me get that one up on the screen for you guys here. Ladd versus Pennington. We got Ladd at +152, Pennington -177. Fight doesn't go at plus money. Let's see here. Oh, Kyle. All right. Yeah, just checking out some of the comments here, you guys. Aspen Ladd versus Raquel Pennington. Aspen Ladd, only 27 years old. Raquel is 33. It's going to be Raquel, who's an inch taller and has a 1-inch reach advantage. Raquel, the much more experienced fighter, 21 professional fights, about 200 more minutes in the pro cage and 3 more years as a pro, 9 more UFC fights, 154 more minutes in the UFC cage. And in terms of finishing, it's going to be Aspen Ladd with a 78% finish rate, 7 out of 9 wins inside the distance, 6 by knockout, 1 by submission. And then Raquel Pennington, a 39% finish rate in 13 professional wins. In these ladies' 10 combined losses, we've seen 3 of them be inside the distance. So both of these ladies are pretty durable. The only time we saw Ladd finished was after just a horrific weight cut, and she barely made weight, almost died on the scale, and then got dropped by the very first punches she saw from Jermaine Durandamy, who will absolutely do that to you. When it comes to the striking numbers, we see that Pennington lands more than she absorbs. Ladd absorbs more than she lands. Both are at 49% striking accuracy. Ladd has one knockdown while Pennington has none, and Ladd has been knocked down once while Pennington has never been knocked down. Much more defensively responsible is Raquel Pennington with a 63% striking defense, while Ladd is below 50% on the striking defense. Excuse me. So, look, Pennington's going to be way better on the feet. She's the way better boxer. Aspen Ladd looks entirely uncomfortable on her feet. She throws one strike at a time. She's very awkward. Her striking just isn't good. It's not good for the bantamweight division. Raquel's going to be much better there. And then in the clinch, I've seen Aspen Ladd lose a ton of minutes in the clinch to Norma Dumont, to Lena Landsberg. She can be put up against on that fence and lose minutes there. And that is a place that Raquel Pennington has been excellent at winning minutes at, is on that fence. And then we go to the grappling. And we see here, you guys, that both ladies are going for takedowns. Aspen Ladd is attempting just a little more than 2 takedowns per fight. Pennington about 3.5 takedown attempts per fight. Ladd gets her takedowns at almost 50%, while for Pennington it's below 30%. Aspen's fights have been taking place in control time positions about 58% of the time, while for Pennington it's about 48% of the time. So both of these ladies are spending right around half of all their fights in control time positions for or against. It's Aspen who's out controlling her opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio, while Raquel Pennington is right at an even ratio in terms of controlling her opponents to her opponents controlling her. And Pennington is, about right around even on efficiency. She's tried just about as many takedowns as her opponents have. Her opponents have gotten a couple more takedowns, and the control time almost identical. So neither one of these ladies is showing good takedown defense, though. 57% for Aspen Ladd, 65% for Raquel Pennington, and both of these ladies are being controlled at least 19% of their UFC cage time. So I think that this fight's going to come down to whether Aspen Ladd can get Raquel Pennington on the ground and keep her there. Because if she doesn't, I don't see her winning minutes on the cage, and I don't see her winning minutes standing up. It's really almost that simple to break down. And then when we go to the strength of schedule, you guys, something else becomes clearly evident here. And that's, who does Raquel Pennington lose to? Raquel Pennington loses to champions. Jessica Andrade, champion. Holly Holm, champion. Amanda Nunes, champion. Jermaine Randami, champion. Holly Holm, champion. And then the wins, Macy Chiasson, Pani Kianzad, Marion Renault, Irene Aldana, Misha Tate, Elizabeth Phillips, Betch Correa. She's 1-1 against Andrade, Ashley Evans Smith, Roxanne Modafferi. You disrespect Raquel Pennington at your own peril, my guys. She's fucking tough. The resume speaks for itself. Aspen Ladd is going to have to bring something special in order to beat this woman, because that's who beats Raquel Pennington. Champions. Does Aspen Ladd have a champion in her at this point? Somebody that really is dependent on getting fights to the ground, dependent on being on top, using that ground and pound. And I was watching some of these finishes. I was making a joke that Aspen Ladd reminds me of this Chihuahua that's on my block, that's always outside behind a fence, that hates my Rottweiler. And whenever I walk my dog by that house, you hear that dog, and it's like, you hear that when Aspen Ladd is on top working that ground. You hear like pop, pop, pop. But then once she's very close to finishing, listen, she's screaming. She's actually screaming. She's It's fucking terrifying. So Aspen Ladd has to get on top, you guys. She has to get on top, stay on top, and then once she's there, she can work her Brazilian jiu-jitsu, try to immobilize you, start working that ground and pound, but that's her only chance. So let's look. Let's look at the ladies who have controlled Raquel Pennington, Panty Kianza, 334 seconds of control time. Well, let's look at the takedowns that she's absorbed here. So she's been taken down 3 out of 8 times here, 1 out of 2 times here, 4 out of 5 here, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 2. So in the fights where she doesn't get taken down, which are the fights that aren't highlighted, we've got 1, 2, 3 wins and 3 losses. So she's 3-3 when she doesn't get taken down. When she does get taken down, she's actually winning a ton of these fights. The only women to take her down and beat her were Jessica Andrade and Amanda Nunes. Other than that, Ashley Evans-Smith took her down. She lost. Jessica Andrade in the rematch took her down. She lost. Elizabeth Phillips took her down. She lost. Misha Tate took her down. She lost. Renault took her down. She lost. Kianzad took her down. She lost. Chason took her down. She lost. So is Aspen Ladd on the level of fighter that beats a Raquel Pennington? Yeah, I think that this is Rocky, you guys. I really do. Aspen Ladd, very, very tough, very durable. So I think that Raquel Pennington by decision at just about even money is a safe bet. And then you just pray to Jah that Aspen Ladd doesn't get on top of Raquel Pennington and start screaming at the top of her lungs. Because if you watch that Lena Landsberg fight, that fight was not over yet, but she was screaming so loud that I think it made Lucas Bosowski completely uncomfortable, and he stepped in to stop the fight so that he wouldn't have to hear Aspen Ladd's shrill screams as she rained down ground and pound on poor Lena Landsberg. And Lena Landsberg was like, what? Why did you stop the fight? You know, you could tell that she wasn't even hurt. It was just the screaming of Aspen Ladd. I don't think she's going to be able to scream loud enough to get a win here, you guys. I think that Raquel is going to keep this fight standing. I think that she's going to piece her up on the feet. I think that she's going to win minutes on the cage as well. And I think she's going to do a good job of stopping the takedown attempts that come from Aspen Ladd. And we know that Aspen Ladd, even though she's high percentage on her takedown attempts, that she doesn't attempt enough of them for us to feel comfortable that she's going to wind up in top position long enough in order to win this fight. Pick Raquel Pennington by decision. And we got my guy Equity Sports Analytics in the room saying, what's up, Weezy? Continued thanks for these in-depth breakdowns. Continued thanks to everyone, all 53 of you guys that are hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. DFS by the numbers saying, if Ladd is crying on the scales Friday, I'm going to take a hard look at Rocky. And that's another thing we have to talk about. Aspen Ladd has had a very, very hard time making 135. This fight is down at 135, you guys. This is a very difficult weight cut for her. So if you get in on Rocky early, chances are, you might beat the line movement even more, because if Aspen Ladd looks like garbage on the scales again and looks like she had a really rough weight cut, which we've seen the last 2 times she tried to make 135, or maybe even the last 3, because it goes back to the Durandamy fight. Dumont, Kunitskaya, and Durandamy. So those are 3 fights where she had a very hard time making weight. So, and even against Dumont, that was at 145. So she's coming back down to 135 for this fight. Just another reason to like Raquel Pennington here. One of my favorite moments, says Kyle Kelly, is when Aspen got her ass chewed out by her corner between the 2nd and 3rd round in the Yana fight, and then proceeds to drop and finish her. Was a dope moment. That was so fucking cool. I'm glad you mentioned that, Kyle, because one thing that people didn't talk about was during the Norma Dumont fight, Aspen Ladd's corner is getting in her face, telling her, look, what you're doing isn't working. You're fighting Norma's fight. You're going to lose this fight. Here's what you need to do. And they got in her face and they told her what she needed to hear. Well, go back and watch that Yana Kunitskaya fight. It was the same damn situation. Aspen was too fucking patient. Her corner got in her face between the 2nd and 3rd rounds and said, if you don't unleash the fury, you're going to lose this fight. They got right in her face. They told her exactly what she needed to hear. It wasn't nice. It wasn't encouraging. It was, get your fucking ass out there and murder this girl because you're better than her. And that's exactly what she did. So, Aspen can turn it on, and she's terrifying when she turns it on. So you have to watch out for that. But Raquel Pennington, man, she's so good. I am going to be picking Pennington here. All right. Next fight, you guys, is going to be Jairzinho Bigi Boy Rozenstruik against Marcin Tybura. Great fight here. If you want an in-depth breakdown of this fight, check out the MMA Engine YouTube channel. The link to the balls deep breakdown I did on this fight on the MMA Engine YouTube channel yesterday is in the description of this video. Jairzinho, you guys, is 2 years younger. He is going to be about 4 inches shorter than Marcin Tybura, and they both have a 78-inch reach. It's Tybura who has the experience advantage here, 14 more professional fights, 180 more minutes in the pro MMA cage, and 6 more months as a pro mixed martial artist, 6 more fights at the UFC level, and 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. It's going to be Rozenstruik who's the better finisher. He's finished all 6 of his UFC wins by knockout, and he's finished 11 of his 12 pro wins by knockout. Tybura has a 68% finish rate as a pro in 22 pro wins, 27% by submission, 41% by knockout, and he's been finished inside the distance in 4 of his 7 losses as a pro, and for Rozenstruik, it's 1 of his 3 losses as a pro. When it comes to the striking, it's Rozenstruik all day. This is a striker versus grappler matchup here. God, sorry, guys. The old lungs aren't doing as well as they used to. But yeah, Rozenstruik has got a ton of power. He's got the kickboxing background. Marcin Tybura is serviceable on the feet. He can actually win a minute or 2 there. He's got good striking for a heavyweight. It's just that he's not on Jairzinho's level. And Jairzinho has very, very serious power. 2.5% of the significant strikes that he's thrown in the or landed in the UFC have resulted in a knockdown. And in Jairzinho's 6 wins, he has a knockdown in all 6 of those wins, you guys. Let me just bring it up on the screen here for you guys to check out. Win against Sakai, win against Dos Santos, win against Overeem, win against Arlovski, Crowder, and Albini. In all of those, you see a 1 knockdown, 1 knockdown, 1 knockdown, 1 knockdown, 1 knockdown, and 1 knockdown. So he's 6-0 in the fights that he gets a knockdown in, and he's 0-3 in the fights that he doesn't get a knockdown in. Against Curtis Blades, no knockdowns. Against Cyril Gane, no knockdowns. And against Ngannou, no knockdowns. And what we see in 2 out of these 3 fights that he lost, 379 seconds of control time allowed and 269 seconds of control time allowed against Cyril Gane. It should be noted that the combined record of the 3 men that have beaten Jairzinho Rozenstruik thus far in the UFC is a combined 30 wins and 6 losses. So, I mean, he's really only losing to the top level competition in the UFC, all of them top 5 guys. Marcin Tybura is a top 10 heavyweight, not top 5. But when we see Tybura, we can see some similar things here, you guys. He, in the fights that he's winning against Walt Harris, against Greg Hardy, against Ben Rothwell, against Grishin, against Spivak, against Struve. And then we see Arlovski, Enrique, and Pesta. When we see these fights, we see good control time numbers here. 118, 87, 188, 565, 502, 463, 517, 173, and 15. So when he's winning fights, he's getting takedowns. 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 5, 2, 1. He's only won 1 fight in his UFC career where he hasn't gotten a takedown. And in the fights that he's lost, 0 takedowns, 0 takedowns, 0 takedowns, 1, 1, and 1. So Marcin Tybura has never lost a fight when he's gotten more than 1 takedown. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik has lost, I think, every fight that he's been taken down except for the Albini fight, if I'm not mistaken. Now let's just look real quick here. He got taken down twice by Albini. He got taken down twice in this fight, twice in this fight, and 3 times in this fight. So he's 2-2 in fights that he gets taken down in, but one of those wins was against Alistair Overeem. It was in the last 5 seconds of round 5, and he was well on his way to losing that fight. So, yeah, it's going to be Rozenstruik, you guys, who is the better striker here. He throws with a ton of power. He's going to march people down, try to back you up against the fence, and then land a flurry. He's a lot like Derek Lewis with just much better, more technical striking. And Rozenstruik is also a orthodox striker, so his jab is so good. He throws that jab. He can knock you down with the jab. He can knock you down with the lead left hook, and his right hand, he chucks that for power as well. So I like the fact for Rozenstruik that Tybura is an orthodox fighter because it means that he's going to be able to use his jab. Unlike when in the Overeem fight, when Overeem fought southpaw the entire time, so that Jairzinho wasn't able to set up his jab. I think that Rozenstruik is going to have to worry about how many kicks he throws here because Tybura will catch kicks and take people down off of that. I think Rozenstruik would be a lot more deadly if he can mix in his kicks a little bit more. I don't think he's going to have the option to do that in this particular matchup. I think he's going to have to stick with his hands. He's going to have to pressure Marcin Tybura, try to get his back up against the cage and land a big shot. But, I do tend to think that that's how this fight is going to go. Marcin Tybura has attempted 58 takedowns in 15 fights. He's getting 1.54 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's getting 30% control time allowing 14% control time against. Rozenstruik has shown 75% takedown defense, and he's been controlled for 26% of his UFC career. Tybura is a legitimate black belt, you guys, so if he does get this fight to the ground, he's got an absolute chance to finish this on the ground with ground and pound. But Rozenstruik has shown good takedown defense thus far, and, other than really good wrestlers like Blades, he's been difficult to control on the ground and difficult to get there and keep there. So Rozenstruik's beaten the better competition here as well. If we look, we see that a 2.15 ratio for Rozenstruik compared to 1.41 for Tybura, 1.73 ratio in the wins for Rozenstruik, and he's even fighting more experienced competition. And like I said, he's lost to only top 5 heavyweights. So I like Rozenstruik striking. I like the strength of schedule for him. But Tybura, you like the experience advantage, you like the tail of the tape advantage, and you like that grappling advantage. It's just that Tybura doesn't spam enough takedowns in order for me to be confident that this fight's going to be on the ground long enough that he's going to be able to avoid the big shot. So I got to pick Jairzinho Rozenstruik to win this fight by knockout, you guys. If we look at the line here, Rozenstruik is the favorite at about minus 160. You can get him at minus 142 right now on Bet Online. But I like Rozenstruik by knockout at plus money because that's his path. He's finished 100% of his UFC wins by knockout. He wins 100% of the time when he gets a knockdown. And if he knocks you down, he's finishing you because he just hits that hard. So in a division that's known for its power, Jairzinho Rozenstruik is top 5 in that division when it comes to that power, the ability to finish fight with his hands. So, I got to pick Jairzinho Rozenstruik to win this one by knockout. I'm going to say in the second round, you guys. That's it for that fight. We're going to move on to the hype train, you guys. Ian Garry sitting up here at minus 400 against Darian Weeks at plus 300. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting here at minus 165. I forgot okay. So let's move on to that tab here on the stats. And then we've still got an entire main card to go here. So both of these guys are south of 30 years old. Darian Weeks is 28. Ian Garry only 24. It's going to be Garry much bigger here at 6'3" and having a 2-inch reach advantage over Darian Weeks. Ian Garry now training at Sanford. Darian Weeks, as far as I know, it's Hullett House. I don't know if he's training anyplace else now. We've got 8 pro fights for Garry, 6 for Weeks, so 25 more minutes in the pro cage for Garry. And these guys started their pro careers 1 week apart from each other. So the experience numbers, very similar here. but still, you got to give the edge in the measurables and the experience to Garry. We've got a 75% finish rate for Garry, a 100% finish rate for Weeks, and neither one of these guys has ever been finished. Ian Garry has never even lost. Garry, only one fight, and Weeks only one fight. But Garry beats Jordan Williams by knockout with 1 second left in the first round. Darian Weeks loses a decision to Bryan Barberena. Darian Weeks won one of those rounds. He won the second round of that fight, but Barberena won the first and third. Very close fight. And I think it should be noted that Darian Weeks took that fight on less than a week's notice. So, he went in there against a UFC veteran who had been in there with guys like Colby Covington and Vicente Luque, really quality opponents. Matt Brown, and he took him to a decision and won a lot of minutes of that fight, got takedowns, landed big shots, and easily won the second round. So I guess we could say that Darian Weeks has been the guy between the two that has fought the better brand of competition simply because he spent 3 rounds in the cage with Bryan Barberena. Weeks got 4 of the 8 takedowns that he went for against Barberena. Got 22% control time on those 4 takedowns. Ian Garry was controlled for 15% of his first UFC fight and got 12% control time in his own right. So we don't have much to go by, you guys, here. We've got the regional scene competition that these guys have fought, and we'll go through that real quickly here. But Garry's very well-rounded. He's one of these guys, he looks the part. He's a huge welterweight. Very smooth, very slick striking, manages distance well, throws kicks, throws punches, straight punches too. And you just got to love the size. He looks very calm too. He kind of looks like he's waiting in line at the DMV before the fight's about to start. And he's got some decent wins. Rostam Akman's a decent win. Jack Grant is a good regional scene win. And then Jordan Williams, a lot of people shit on Jordan Williams, but, Jordan Williams is tough, dude. Guy got 2 UFC wins, one over Tim Karen, one over RoboCop, had a split decision with Ramazan Kuramagomedov. It's just that when Jordan goes down to 170, he's much less durable there than he is up at 185. So, big win there for Ian Garry, but definitely Jordan Williams won some minutes of that fight. Definitely landed some big shots early. Darian Weeks only has 6 professional fights, but like we said, already got a fight against Bryan Barberena that was very close, and he took that fight on very short notice. So he gave an excellent account of himself in his UFC debut. And then we look at the wins before that: over 3-4 Craig Fairley in LFA, an 8-3 Dustin Parrish in the Midwest Fight League, a boxing win here over Derek Clardy, a boxing loss over Tony Woods, Blaine Richards 2-0, Travis Ford 0-0, and Zach Long 2-0. But then we see that there's a long and storied amateur career here. So this guy has a lot of fights, Darian Weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 wins and 4 losses in amateur. And even I think this guy Gusenov, I've seen him fight somewhere. Was it in Brave? Oh no, it was IMMAF. Either way, this guy has fought some really good competition here too. So both of these guys have fought good regional scene competition. I'd say Garry's just a little bit better. The UFC level opponent better for Weeks than it was for Garry. But they're both well-rounded. We see that Darian Weeks is taking boxing fights in addition to having a wrestling background, and he's a guy who throws with a ton of power. Garry's going to have to stuff some takedowns here. He's going to have to be good everywhere in order to beat this Darian Weeks. I think this line is entirely too wide. I picked Ian Garry as my ass shaving of the week when he fought against Jordan Williams, and he came through beautifully for me that week. So he holds a special place in my heart. It's just that at this point, you guys, I really think that Darian Weeks should be not much worse than a coin flip with Ian Garry at this point. As good as Ian Garry is, as talented as he is, I think Darian Weeks is a very talented mixed martial artist in his own right, and he can mix the boxing and the wrestling. He showed excellent conditioning on short notice against Brian Barberena. Landed some big shots in the last 5 seconds of the third round. So I think Gary's going to have his hands full, and I think that this fight's going to be a lot closer than what the line is saying it's going to be. I'll pick Ian Garry to win this fight by decision, but I think he's going to have his hands full, and I think it's going to be very close, and I would not be parlaying up Ian Garry this week. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and MMA Codes, my guy, by the way, I always love to see in here, saying Weeks by decision. Garry wedding was a month ago. Coming off a wedding, man, you don't like to see that. Rex Lee saying war zombie. And then Kyle Kelly saying, does Ian Garry change his name to the present in a few years when he becomes a contender? Yeah, I always love when people call, like Melvin Gillard back in the day was the young assassin. And then like you're seeing him in Bellator at the age of 40. And he's like, looks all grizzled. He's had 80 professional fights and they're still calling him the young assassin. It's like, dude, you're not young anymore, man. So I think maybe the present, current Ian Garry could be another one, because he can't be the future forever. Macy Barber is going to have to be the present at some point too, because, she's just not going to be the future 5 years from now. Somebody else is going to be the future. Shit, right now in 125, Aaron Blanchfield is the future, not Macy Barber. So yeah, man, I'm with you there, Kyle. That's a good point. Let's move on to this next fight though. We have got Vinc Pichel and Mark Madsen kicking off the main card. I was worried that Garry Weeks would be the main card kickoff fight, and I didn't think that would be good for a pay-per-view. I thought it should have been this one or the Rozenstruik Tybura fight, but this is a fine choice. This is a great matchup. I'm in love with this matchup. Vinc Pichel, Mark Madsen, 39 years old for Pichel, 37 for Madsen. Pichel, 2 inches of height. The reach is identical. They're both orthodox fighters. We got Vinc Pichel fighting out of Factory X Muay Thai. We got Mark Madsen fighting out of Fight Ready MMA. Pichel, 5 more pro fights, about 60 more minutes in the cage, and about 4 more years as a pro. He's also got 6 more UFC level fights and about 70 more minutes in the UFC cage. When it comes to finishing, 54% finish rate for Madsen, 57% finish rate for Vinc Pichel. And Pichel's been finishing his only 2 losses, and Mark Madsen is still undefeated as a mixed martial artist. Striking. Vinc Pichel should have the striking advantage here. He lands 3.42 significant strikes a minute and absorbs 2.5. He's got a 46% striking accuracy. He's landed 1 knockdown in 9 fights, and he's never been knocked down while showing 58.5% striking defense. Mark Madsen lands 4.33 significant strikes a minute, absorbs 3.62. He's never landed a knockdown, but he does have a lot of power. 48% striking accuracy, almost 61% striking defense, never been knocked down either. Now, Pichel should be the better striker, but we saw Madsen kind of stay behind his jab in the Guida fight. Guida moved around a lot, and Madsen had a hard time with that, initiating the wrestling exchanges. So he kept walking down Guida, keeping his back up against the cage. And what I really liked that Madsen did was he wasn't serious about shooting for takedowns, but he was using his takedown entries to initiate the clinch and then using those clinch exchanges to keep his to win 15 to 20 seconds with his opponent's back up against the cage. And then when he felt like that was enough, he's exiting the clinch and landing strikes on the way out. He did that 4 or 5 times against Guida. Also showed the ability to kind of stay behind that jab and land that jab over and over again. So we do see Mark Madsen at the age of 37 taking the next step with his striking, using the clinch game to set up some striking exchanges, using some striking exchanges to set up the clinch game. And when he's working that game properly, that's when he can set up his Greco-Roman wrestling. Now, Vinc Pichel has been a master of getting his wrestling working in the UFC as well. 9 UFC fights, 23 takedowns on 42 attempts, over 50% on his takedowns, 3.29 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents 34% to 19%. The only problem is that he's showing a 26% takedown defense. So, yikes, you guys, that's really bad. That's really bad when you're fighting an Olympic wrestler. That's a bad matchup. This is what we call a bad matchup. Pichel should be the better striker. He's definitely going to have the better conditioning here. This guy pushes a pace for the full 3 rounds. But if Mark Madsen wants to win minutes with his wrestling and he commits to it more than he did in the Guida fight, he should absolutely be able to do that. And the 2 pro losses for Vinc Pichel come to Gregor Gillespie and, oh Christ, who was the other one? Rustam Khabilov. Both of these guys used wrestling to dominate him. Khabilov knocked him out with a German suplex and slammed him right on his head. And Gregor Gillespie wrestle fucked him for almost 2 rounds and then subbed him with a rear naked choke, I believe. So Pichel's weak spot has been being finished by better wrestlers. And Mark Madsen is exactly that. He's the better wrestler here. He's just going to have to avoid being finished in the first 2 rounds, because if he can survive those first 2 rounds and make Madsen push a grappling heavy game plan, he could potentially have success in the 3rd round. Pichel never really gets tired. He trains at altitude. He's always been known for pushing a pace and going hard into the 3rd round. So this is going to be a very interesting banger of a fight. I could see Madsen having a lot of success early, staying behind his jab, using his striking to set up his grappling entries, getting takedowns, winning minutes on the cage, winning minutes on the ground. And I can also see him getting a finish there. I think that he should be able to control these first 2 rounds easily, as long as he goes to the grappling and is not satisfied striking like he was against Guida. Guida is a guy who's going to give you a lot more resistance on takedown attempts than Pichel will. So hopefully, if Madsen wants to win this fight, he's going to go to his grappling a lot more than we did see him go to it against Guida. And now that he's training at Fight Ready MMA, if you follow those guys over there, cage wrestling is something that they're working constantly. And it's something that Madsen is already very good at with a Greco-Roman silver medal. So he can win minutes on the cage. He can get upper body takedowns, suplexes. He's very, very strong. So I see Madsen having success early and potentially finishing the fight early. I could see Pichel having success late, potentially getting a 3rd round finish here. But I think Madsen is more likely to finish. And I think an interesting way to play this is to play the Madsen finish only prop, and then you can hedge with a 3rd round bet on Vinc Pichel, because I don't see Pichel getting an early finish here against Mark Madsen, because the second Madsen doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he can set up his wrestling and get the fight to the ground and win minutes there and win rounds there. So I like Madsen to win this fight. I could see him getting a finish, but I think at plus money, I think Mark Madsen is actually worth a bet. And if you're on that Madsen side, I feel like you can always hedge with Vinc Pichel round 3, because that dude pushes a pace. He never quits. There's no quit in him at all. And you got to pretty much kill him to get him out of there. And if he survives to the 3rd round, Mark Madsen's going to have a hard time, because we remember what Austin Hubbard did to Mark Madsen in the 3rd round. But here's the thing. Madsen is incredibly durable. He's Danish. I'm part Danish. Danes are tough people, okay? I could tell you some stories from my ancestors. Tough people, stoic people. The Danes are not to be fucked with. And Mark Madsen is not to be fucked with. I'm picking him to win this fight, you guys. I like the plus money on the Madsen money line. And I think Pichel round 3 is also something that's worth a play at plus 1,600. But let's move on to the next fight. It's going to be Tecia, the tiny tornado Torres, squaring off against Mackenzie Dern. So what we got here is Tecia Torres being 3 years older than Mackenzie Dern. It's Mackenzie who's going to be 3 inches taller and have a 3-inch reach advantage here. They're both orthodox fighters. I don't know. Is Tecia training up in Colorado now? I know she used to be at ATT, but I believe her and Raquel are training up in altitude now in Colorado Springs, but I could be wrong about that. And Mackenzie Dern was training out of Black House. She's been working with Jason Perillo. I'm not exactly sure if she's still at Black House or if she's just at Perillo's gym. But either way, it's going to be Torres with the pro fights experience advantage here. 5 more pro fights, over 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 4 more years as a pro in comparison to Mackenzie. And we've got 6 more UFC level fights, about 100 more minutes in the UFC cage for Tecia Torres. It's going to be Dern who's the better finisher here, as she's finished 64% of her 11 wins by submission, and Tecia Torres has only finished 2 of her 13 wins by submit, or 1 by knockout, 1 by submission. So only 11 wins by decision in Tecia Torres' career and only 2 finishes. Neither one of these ladies has ever been finished. So in 7 combined career losses, neither one of these ladies has ever been finished. When we look at the striking is going to be Tecia Torres all day. She's fantastic on the feet. She uses movement well, lateral movement, in and out movement. When she rushes into strike, she never throws just one strike. She's always throwing in combination, and she has heavy hands. As long as this fight is on the feet, Tecia should be able to use that movement, that speed that she has, and that great footwork to be moving laterally, moving in and out, and landing and throwing a lot more significant strike attempts. Mackenzie Dern is somebody who's going to really, really need to get the fight to the ground. I don't know. I mean, according to this, Mackenzie Dern has won decisions. I mean, only 64% of her wins have been by submission. She's got a win over Jandiroba by decision, but mostly she's getting wins by submission. She needs to get the fight to the ground. She needs to finish there. Tecia has been taken down 23 times in 14 fights. Her takedown defense is 58%, and she's been controlled for less than 1/5 of her UFC cage time. So about 36 minutes of cage time she's been controlled by her opponents on 23 takedown attempts. So you got to believe that if Dern does wind up getting this fight to the ground, that she is going to be successful winning minutes there, or potentially even finishing the fight there. But the thing is that Torres does have very good fight IQ. She really does know what she's good at, and she tries to keep the fight standing. We see that she's only got 15% takedown accuracy and has only taken down her opponents 9 times in 14 fights. But despite the fact that for every 1 takedown Tecia gets, her opponents get like 2.5 takedowns, Ticia's actually out-controlling her opponents. So she's not easy to keep on the ground once you get her there. The problem is that it's much easier to stand up against somebody that takes you down when you're not worried about them submitting you, because oftentimes you do have to kind of show them your back or put yourself in a defensively bad position in order to try to get back to your feet. And Mackenzie Dern, if you make mistakes on the ground, she's not just going to put you in a bad spot. She's going to finish the fight there. But, you still got to believe that Tecia is going to be way better on the feet. This fight is going to start on the feet. And Ticia's never been submitted in her career, and she's fought some very good opponents. When we look at the strength of schedule numbers here, we see that Tecia Torres has the better ratio and is fighting the more experienced competition. But look at the wins, you guys. Tecia Torres' wins are not great. She's a great fighter. She's been in close fights with great fighters that she's lost. But the average record of the woman that Tecia beats is 3 wins and 4 losses. So she's beating, on the aggregate, ladies with losing records in the UFC. Average records of 28 wins and 37 losses. And Mackenzie Dern is the same thing. She's beating ladies with losing records as well. And both of these ladies lose when they take the step up in competition. 2.3 ratio of the ladies that beat Torres, 5-1 ratio in wins to losses for Mackenzie Dern's losses to Marina Rodriguez and to Amanda Ribas. So, this is a very close fight, and the line kind of tells that story. If Dern is able to get this fight to the ground, she should be able to win minutes there and potentially finish the fight there. If Tecia keeps this fight standing, it's really hard to picture Mackenzie winning 2 rounds off of Tecia on the feet. I know her boxing's getting better. I know she's still very young, and we can expect improvements from Mackenzie Dern on the feet, and she has been making those improvements, but still, Ticia's been in there with Wang Li. She's been in there with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's won 5 rounds with Joanna. She's fought really good strikers before and absolutely held her own against those strikers. So this is not, Mackenzie Dern's striking is not anything that she hasn't seen before. The losses to Marina Rodriguez, to Zhang Wei Li, to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Jessica Andrade, Rose Namajunas. She's also a woman who basically just loses to champions. 4 of those 5 women are champions. Is Mackenzie Dern going to be a champion? If her wrestling gets a lot better, probably yes. If Mackenzie Dern starts wrestling like Tatiana Suarez, she's going to be almost impossible to beat. But she's not there yet. And, all we have to do is look at the 3 for 28 on takedown attempts that Mackenzie Dern has been in the UFC to know that the wrestling isn't quite there yet. So I've got to pick Tecia Torres to win this fight. But the bet that I really like, you guys, is the fight goes to decision at -148 on FanDuel. 7 combined losses for these 2 ladies. None of them have been inside the distance. Tecia Torres only finished 2 of her 13 pro wins. And Mackenzie Dern really only finishes this fight if she gets it to the ground. And Mackenzie Dern has only gotten 3 takedowns in 8 UFC fights. So at -148, you're saying it's about, a 61% implied probability that this fight goes to decision. But it's 100% implied probability that these ladies have never lost inside the distance. And when you look at the finish rate for the women's strawweight division, it's around 30% in 3-round fights. So you're definitely getting a little bit of an edge there over the books by taking that fight goes to decision at -148. That's going to be my preferred bet of this fight. Fight goes to decision, but I'm going to pick Tecia Torres to win this one by decision, you guys. Next fight, my God. This is a fun one. And we got my guy Monk Maddox in the room. Good to see you, Monk. Saying, what up, Unc? What up, chat? Good to see you, brother. And then Cuban Assassin saying, is Tecia Torres taller than our hero Keith Peterson? She probably gets hotter chicks than no-nonsense Keith. I don't know if she gets better chick. I could say Keith Peterson is one of those cats that I picture out there low-key crushing ass. That's just my opinion of it. I think Keith Peterson is out there getting it. I think he's wrist deep in any of these women that he wants to be on any given night. But Ticia's a beautiful woman too. So she could probably get any of the ladies that she wants. She's doing all right with Raquel Pennington. So, yeah, man, I'm with you there, Keith. And then Kyle Kelly is saying Rob Schneider is Virna Jandiroba's dad. Now, man, let me tell you something. I'm getting sick of hearing that because Virna Jandiroba has a beautiful head of hair. Rob Schneider does not have a beautiful head of hair. There's good curly hair and there's bad curly hair. Virna is the good curly. Rob Schneider, bad curly, okay? Virna Jandiroba, far more handsome, far tougher, far more talented. It's Virna all day. And then Dern not going to be champ, but her butt. So the judges should put that into consideration. I love you, Justin. Good stuff. And DXJC, the only thing that Keith crushes is beer cans and empty cigarette packs. He crushes that too. I just have my own read on that. But you guys have got a read on this fight. So do I. Gilbert Burns against Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev, the fighter that welterweights see in their nightmares. 27 years old, 8 years younger than Gilbert Burns. 4 inches taller. 4-inch reach advantage. Much bigger dude here. It's Burns who's more experienced with 14 more professional fights, about 200 more minutes in the pro cage, and about 7 more years as a pro, 13 more UFC level fights, 180 more minutes in the UFC cage. Gilbert Burns, way more experienced. It's going to be Khamzat, who has a 100% finish rate, 4 by knockout, 4 by submission, 6 by knockout. Gilbert Burns, a 70% finish rate as a pro. That is 16 of 20 wins coming inside the distance. That would be 8 by submission, 6 by knockout. So, yeah, these guys are both great finishers, but it's Khamzat who's obviously the better finisher. The striking numbers are hilarious, really. Khamzat has landed in 4 fights, 112 significant strikes, and he's absorbed 1. He's absorbed 1 strike in 4 fights. Khamzat has been perfect. It's really been, one-way traffic. These are video game numbers. You land 8.68 significant strikes per minute and absorb 0.08. You're landing your strikes at a 77% accuracy. You have 1 knockdown. You're averaging over a knockdown per 15 minutes. 75% striking defense. You've never been knocked down. You control your opponents 92% of the time and have not yielded 1 second of control time. You've gotten 4 of the 6 takedowns that you've went for. And you've really basically just shaved the ass of everybody that was stupid enough to get in the cage with you. Khamzat Chimaev is just on a completely another level. Let's just get it out of the way. How the fuck does Gilbert Burns win this fight? He wins the fight by getting it past the 7.5-minute mark and Khamzat Chimaev death gasses. I really see that as the only path here. You don't put up these kind of numbers ever at this level. Ever. I mean, how fucking stupid is it after a 4-fight sample size to have 112-1 significant strike landed to significant strike absorbed ratio? How do you control your opponent's 92.5% of the cage time and not allow 1 second of control time against? How do you not even see the 7-minute mark of any fight in your career, despite the fact that you fought at 185 pounds and 170, that you fought some of the best regional scene competition that the world has to offer right now? This guy's got regional scene wins over Sidney Wheeler, over Ikram Aliskerov, over Marco Kisic, over Mizwandale Hilongba. And then he comes into the UFC. He beats Cage Warriors champion and Reese McKee. He beats John Phillips. And then he beats Gerald Meerschaert, made that look easy. And then he just goes through Li Jingliang like a hot knife through butter. And people who say that he's, taking the step up to Burns, I get it. But Burns is a former 155er. This guy just murdered a 185er that has so many, Gerald Meerschaert's got over 20 wins by submission in his career. He's got a 94% finish rate as a pro. You cannot perform any better than Khamzat Chimaev has performed up to this point. I have never seen anybody be this dominant ever over a 4-fight sample size. And he's fought 2 legitimate UFC level competition guys in Li Jingliang and Gerald Meerschaert. Cannot wait to see this man back in the cage here. Great test. A guy who's fought for a title at 170, a guy who has power in his hands, a guy who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion in Gilbert Burns. And despite the fact that Gilbert Burns has fought for titles, that he's a multiple-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion and black belt, the fact that he's got 13 UFC wins and finished 62% of those 13 wins inside the distance, he's minus, Khamzat is minus 500, minus 600 here. What do we got this at? Minus 600. They're saying he wins this fight, 83% of the time on the aggregate. So Khamzat Chimaev is going to win this fight. He's probably going to win it inside the distance by knockout, probably inside of 7.5 minutes. But I might want to take a chance on Gilbert Burns round 3, just in case. Now, because we do have to keep in mind, anybody can go out there and say that Khamzat Chimaev is going to shave ass, and they're probably going to look like a genius after the fight takes place on Saturday. But how does Khamzat lose this fight, right? We have to discuss it because he barely made weight against Li Jingliang. He did not make weight in the allotted time, had to go back to the sauna and cut another half pound. Then he made weight. So what happens if this fight does get out of the first round? What happens if Khamzat tries to take down Gilbert and then Gilbert gets an overhook and starts working for submissions and it actually kind of gets Khamzat in a web and he has to defend? How is Khamzat going to look in the second round? How is Khamzat going to look in the third round? We just don't know what his conditioning is going to look like in the second half of a fight because we've never seen him get there. Because you would have to be literally made out of stone to last for 7 minutes with this fucking maniac. So that's the only thing that we have to ask ourselves. So let's just see. What's round 3? Gilbert Burns and wins in round 3 plus 3,500. That would be my bet, I think, on Burns, because we just say, like, let's just say he fucking makes it for 2 rounds. He's been 5 rounds before against Tyron Woodley. And we know that Khamzat had a long battle with COVID. Potentially the conditioning might not be there. Let's play that plus 3,500 for just a tiny little bit, maybe a tenth of a unit, maybe 1/20th of a unit. But just as a little bit of a hedge here in case we have some money on Chimaev, because Chimaev should absolutely shave ass. We've never seen a prospect as dangerous as this kid. We've never seen a guy put up the kind of numbers and be as dominant in the sample size that he's been available thus far. So there's no reason to believe he's not going to continue doing exactly what he's been doing thus far. The pick is Khamzat Chimaev by first round knockout, you guys. But if this fight goes over 1.5 rounds, man, all bets are off. And I wouldn't mind if this fight went to the third round to be holding that plus 3,500 ticket for Gilbert Burns. I would feel pretty good. But yeah, and MMA Asphalt says safe way to play this is doesn't go the distance. And I mean, absolutely. I think that's kind of like parlayable at minus 250 fight doesn't go. Feels like an extremely safe bet. So I agree with you there, man. Next fight, you guys. It's one that we've already seen before. Aljamain Sterling against Peter Yan. We have the undisputed champion in Aljamain Sterling coming off an absolute starching of Peter Yan in the 4th round. Undisputed champion. Here we go. Looking to defend his crown against this fraud, Peter Yan. Yeah, you guys, we've already seen this fight take place once. We've seen Peter Yan be about as good as it gets. One of the best mixed martial artists on the planet in any weight class right now. I really do believe that the bantamweight division might be the most stacked division in the entire UFC, and Peter Yan is the best in that division. Look, Sterling's bigger. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. He's got 5 more pro fights, a little more of 40 more minutes in the pro cage, 3.5 more minutes or years as a pro, 6 more pro fights, 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. And Aljamain's, both of these guys finish at a 50% rate. Yan never been finished in 2 losses, and Aljamain has been finished once in 3 losses. Yan is the better striker. Sterling probably the better grappler, but really Aljamain Sterling has only gotten 22 takedowns in 15 fights. He's getting 29% control time for, 18% control time against. He doesn't stop takedowns at all. 41% takedown defense. We saw Yan take him down at will whenever he wanted to in the first fight. Sterling has had a neck injury for the last 1.5 years that was the doctors were not clearing him to fight. He looks in fantastic shape. I'm sure he's going to bring great conditioning to the cage here and give Peter Yan his best. But the striking advantage is just too much to, no, he's not going to win minutes striking against Peter Yan, plain and simple. And then we saw him unable to take Peter Yan to the ground. We saw Peter Yan basically able to take Aljo down whenever he wanted to. So how does Aljamain Sterling win this fight? Maybe another illegal knee, maybe Jan brings a foreign object into the cage in his trunks, and while the referee is knocked out, he gets caught trying to, cut up Aljamain Sterling. I don't know how he wins this fight, man. Aljo's great, and maybe he gets a lucky leg lock, or maybe he gets on Peter Yan's back. But can he knock out Peter Yan? No. Can he take down Peter Yan and win 3 rounds with ground control? No. He probably can't even win 1 round with ground control. Can he outbox Peter Yan from a distance? No, never. I think it's really just about Peter Yan not doing anything stupid, not overcommitting the strikes to where Aljo can take his back standing. I think if he avoids that, he finds a way to win 4 out of these 5 rounds easily, cruise to a decision, maybe even get a late knockout. But Peter Yan all day. Let's look at the strength of schedule numbers here. Yan with a 2.06 ratio, Sterling with a 1.63. So Yan has fought the better and more experienced competition. He's beaten the better and more experienced competition, and he's lost to the better and more experienced competition. So Peter Yan's strength of schedule, Peter Yan's striking, Peter Yan grappling. I mean, Sterling's a better grappler, but it doesn't do any good if you can't get the fight there. It doesn't do any good if you shoot for 10 takedowns and get none, and your opponent shoots for 8 takedowns and gets all 8 of them. So, I mean, like in this bout, you can make the argument that Jan's the better grappler because he's the one that's going to choose whether this fight hits the grappling exchanges or it doesn't. So it's Peter Yan all day, twice on Sundays. It's a big line, but I'm picking Peter Yan to win this one by decision. And that brings us to the main event, you guys. And we've got probably the biggest foregone conclusion on this card as it's lined at minus 800 for Alexander Volkanovski. The zombie from Korea coming back at plus 500. The fight doesn't go to decision at plus 120 here. 5-round championship fight. Korean Zombie stepping in for Max Holloway after he got injured a couple of days after this fight was announced. So this is just one of those ones. We did a main event breakdown on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. The link to that video is in the description of this video. Check that one out if you want a longer form breakdown of this fight. My guy DFS by the numbers and I went into all the aspects of that fight. We broke this one down completely. I won't need to spend nearly as much time here on just the tip as I did on this earlier this week, because this one, it's just really hard to see a path for a Korean Zombie other than landing a big shot early. Look, both of these guys have fought Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega comes back after a long layoff, wins the first round against Zombie. Looks like Zombie's starting to turn the tide in the second round, but he eats a big spinning elbow, and then Ortega wins the third, fourth, and the fifth. And then we saw Alexander Volkanovski absolutely just take apart Brian Ortega on the feet for 5 rounds. That fight almost got stopped after the third. It almost got stopped after the fourth. Volkanovski's just on another level with his striking. He's incredibly defensively responsible. He throws a ton of volume. He has power, great leg kicks. And he's just, a master of winning minutes on the feet. And the Korean Zombie is the opposite of a minute winner. This is a guy who relies on knockouts in order to win fights. We almost never see this guy win a decision. As a matter of fact, the Korean Zombie, in his wins, we got an 86% finish rate in his 7 UFC wins. So he's only won 1 fight by decision. And that was the Ige fight. And it's because Ige is incredibly difficult to finish. But Zombie was just on a different level than Ige in the striking. So this is not going to be the case against Volkanovski here. And Korean Zombie could also lose minutes on the ground here, as Volkanovski's gotten 19 takedowns in 10 fights. And Volkanovski's been a master of winning minutes on the ground as well, as he outcontrols his opponents at almost an 8-to-1 ratio. So Volkanovski's going to be the better wrestler here and the better grappler. He's the far better minute winner on the feet. He's got the better conditioning. He's fought and beaten the better brand of competition. He's not taking this fight on short notice. And he's been knocked down once in 10 UFC fights. And that's the Zombie's path here. If we go to the advanced stats and crank it all the way up to the main event here, and we look at Zombie's wins. Is this it? No, it's Jan. Okay. Sterling. Okay, so the win against Ige, the win against Edgar, the win against Moicano, the win against Bermudez, Poirier, Hominick, and Garcia. Round 1, round 2, round 4, round 1, round 1, round 1, round 5. When fights get extended to the 5th round, the 5th round, the 4th round here, he's lost to Aldo, lost to Yair, lost to Ortega. So this is a guy that really does depend on winning moments. And Alexander Volkanovski has lost moments to Brian Ortega and never gave up. I mean, he just seems like he's going to be almost impossible to knock out, almost impossible to get to the ground and win minutes there. This should be Alexander Volkanovski easily. He should cruise to a decision or a late finish here against the short notice Korean Zombie. It's just going to be a different level on the feet in terms of minute winning, in terms of volume, in terms of accuracy, footwork, and the ability to be able to move in and out, left and right, and really frustrate his opponent. This should be pretty much a foregone conclusion, you guys. I am picking Alexander Volkanovski to win the main event by decision. And that at 2 hours here, like a true pro, we have broken down all 13 fights on the UFC 273 card on a Tuesday night. It's midnight Central Time, so that means we've got one more order of business here to go. We've got Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I would be interested to see who you guys think is going to win this fight. Who's going to win this one, you guys? Uncle Weezy's ass shaving the week. Who comes in here and dominates? Who puts me on the map as the best fucking capper in the world when you say Uncle Weezy did it again? Well, it's going to be different, this one. You guys, last week, I kind of feel like I let you down a little bit. I did a max bet on Aleksei Kizraev early in the week at minus 325. I decided on Sunday night that I was going to make him my ass shaving of the week because I had max bet him and because I thought he was going to destroy Dennis Tialulin. Now, he closed at minus 1,200. All right. He did the job. He went out there, but I'm not going to break my arm patting myself on the back because I picked somebody minus 1,200 and they won. So I feel like I owe you guys a little extra something this week. You know, so is the ass shaving of the week going to be Alexander Volkanovski at minus 800? Do I think he shaves ass? Do I think he wins this one clearly? Yes. Am I going to pick him though? No, because he's minus 800. How about Peter Yan sitting at minus 520 right now? Is he going to shave ass? Hell yeah. Am I going to give you Peter Yan as my ass shaving of the week? Nah, man, because it's not a bettable line. Same thing with Chimaev. I'm terrified of Chimaev. I see that guy in my nightmares and I don't have to fight him. You know, all I have to do is make money on him. And that's been pretty easy. You know, it's not a nightmare to see that guy walk into the cage and then cash another stacked ticket there like flapjacks for his Uncle Weezy. That's easy enough. But I can't do it. I can't do it, man. I got to give you guys something a lot closer. What about Mike Mallott, minus 190? What about Julio Arce, minus 185? Nah, man, not good enough, dude. I'm giving you guys an even money ass shaving of the week because I feel like I owe you guys. I had to take the week off last week. We had no UFC. So I'm coming back. I'm fucking getting dirty this week, you guys. I'm giving you guys an even money ass shaving of the week, you guys. Guess what? Guess who it is? Let's get that banner going across the bottom. Is it a 44-year-old man that's going to bring a razor and shaving cream into the cage this weekend? A 44-year-old man with 47 wins by submission, facing off against a walking concussion with 20% takedown defense, who's taking this fight on short notice. And in addition to that, the absolutely perplexing situation that took place when Azamat Mirzakhanov's opponent dropped out Felipe Lins, and they told Mirzakhanov, who is a small 205er, hey, we found a replacement. You want to move up to heavyweight and fight a 265-pound man in Jared Vanderaa? He said, sure, I'll kick that guy's ass. Jared Vanderaa had still not been cleared from the concussion that he had received in the previous fight. And he said, I'll take the fight. And they said, are you cleared to fight, Jared? And he said, no, not right now today. But if you give me this fight, I'm going to be cleared 24 hours before I weigh in. So he's ready to be cleared by the commission 24 hours before he weighs in. He goes to get cleared. They don't clear him. He's still got a concussion. And this guy was trying to take fights while he still had a concussion. This guy is a walking concussion. I don't think he should have taken this fight. You don't take an Aleksei Oleinik fight on short notice. The guy has 47 wins by submission, and you have shit takedown defense. And a guy like Sergey Spivak, who was this close to being finished by Aleksei Oleinik at the end of the first and second rounds, absolutely wrecked Jared Vanderaa on the ground. You guys, I had to put my balls out on the table. I had to slap my dick out there on the table and say, you know what? I'm putting it down this week. I'm giving you guys an even money ass shaving of the week. Not since Molly McCann beat Fire Fist Ji-Yeon Kim have I done this. I'm doing it for you guys this week. Your ass shaving of the week, a 44-year-old old man in Aleksei Oleinik who is fitting to get his 60th professional win. And with that 60th professional win, he will get to wear the absolute pleasure of having the honor of carrying the flag for Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Aleksei Oleinik. You guys, thank you guys all so much for spending your Tuesday night with me. I appreciate each and every one of you guys that watches the videos, that comments on the videos, that big ups that thumb up button, that subscribes to the channel, that subscribes to the MMA Engine channel, and just hangs out with me while I talk MMA. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I'll be back tomorrow night for either another Balls Deep breakdown or another episode of Ask Weezy. 10 o'clock Central Time right here on this channel. You can also find me on Pub Sports Radio tomorrow at 6 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show that I do with DFS by the Numbers. Luke from Sparring with Reality Betting and my guy Monk Maddox. We're going to be doing the DFS card tomorrow night on Pub Sports Radio. And then you guys, the most important order of business is to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 273. Let's go, Aleksei Oleinik. K. Hansen, round 3 sub is a fat one. And how about Gilbert Burns, round 3 at plus 3,500? Why not put just a little bit of money on that? And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks, you guys. UFC 273 coming up this weekend. Thank all you guys for hanging out. And I'll see you right back here, 10 o'clock Central Time on my channel for some Ask Weezy or another Balls Deep breakdown tomorrow night. You guys have a fantastic night, and I'll see you tomorrow.